And welcome to another episode of the Miles Offside podcast, where we talk a little bit of football and a whole lot of nothing. My name is Chuck Bailey, and you join us today on a journey to the south coast, the English Riviera, as it were, as we discuss Southampton Football Club. Joining me today, he's a new one for your ears. Please welcome my good friend Matthew. Matthew, how are you, sir?
Hello there, Chuck. I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very, very well. Excited, G'd up for this season, and I'm looking forward to talking some Saints with you, mate.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always game to talk Saints. As sad as it is, I'm not in a sad way, in a disappointing way in every case. But I'll love to talk about them.
Yeah, well, you know, let's say there's been moments. The 9-0s might crop up.
Yeah.
Let's see past that for now, and just kind of the same as I've done throughout this series. Let's go for the kind of the human element, as it were. And what is your kind of connection with Southampton? How did you come to be a Southampton fan?
Well, it all starts, as it does with so many people, with Manchester United. I know.
As a child of the
silence.
90s.
Child of the 90s. All you see on TV, ITV, I think it was, is Man United in Champions League. So, you know, that's your introduction to football. I know, I agree so strongly. But that got me into football effectively. That and you know, World Cup 98 and all of that. And it wasn't until I went to a couple of Brentford games around the 2000 mark. So Brentford was more of a local club, but I never really got into Brentford themselves, so to speak, which is unfortunate, obviously, nowadays. But it wasn't until 2003. So 2003, I was down in Southampton, or sort of a river down there called the Hamble. And I was down there on the exact day that the FA Cup final that year was on, and it was Southampton against Arsenal. Oh. And I had absolutely no reason really to root for either side, but I think I've always tended to go for an underdog, despite the Man United start. So I sort of pricked up my ears. I was down there in Southampton, so I was, go on Southampton, and they made a pretty good show of it. I think we only lost 1-0, and then it was almost just instant from that moment on. I spent a lot of time down there after then as well, and from that moment on, I felt a real affinity towards them as a club. And then the rest really became history. I sort of really latched onto them, onto the team ethos, the players at the time, and then obviously followed them all the way down, all the way back up. It's been a great journey. I've really sort of moved into every aspect of being a Saints fan, which of course you're going to touch on in a bit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's quite interesting to hear, because it's kind of why I asked, because everyone has mixed, and we have. Obviously, in England, football is so much more ingrained in society that for a lot of people, myself included, it was my dad supports Palace, so I support Palace kind of thing. And then we've noticed with some of our American listeners who we've had on recently, Rob doing the Arsenal episode, Nick doing an episode on Liverpool, that obviously you start so much from afresh. So it's quite refreshing to hear from yourself that it was actually just an experience down there, not down there, down on the south coast, that also helped to steer you away from the Manchester United dark side as well. So I didn't actually know that was the connection. I quite like that.
Yeah, it's quite wholesome in a way. I mean, all of my dad was never a real fan, but all of his brothers and my cousins, that side of things, all Newcastle, because my dad and that lot come from Newcastle, so they're all Newcastle fans, proper Geordies. You
can tell it by your accent.
Does it just about creep through? Let's hide it, though I try.
It's those pictures of you punching horses that really
gets it going, doesn't it?
But obviously, so you went to Southampton. So do you go to games a lot? Obviously, we're kind of we work together, so we're Surrey, South London based people. So do you get to go down to games quite a lot and watch, or what's your status there?
I try and go as often as I can. I think so as I've said, there's very, very many elements to being a Saints fan. And I've currently sort of developed the age old. We have a really exciting first 2/3 of the season, and then after that we just decide we're not interested anymore. So I do tend to go in for the first 2/3 of the season. I try and watch as many games as I can, and I don't know what it is about the third sort of side of the season. I just end up just not making it. Sometimes I wonder if it's just because there's no availability. We often end up with cracking games against teams like Liverpool. I've got obviously Crystal Palace fan friends that we try and meet up with games and stuff like that. But those kinds of games are always sold out by the time I get to them.
Yeah.
But for some reason at the start of the season, I always get to see games. So last season, for example, I saw the first 8 home games in a row.
Nice.
And that was, it was great. We had a really good start to the season. Not points-wise, but performance-wise. It's one of those Saints fans. We will always tell you about how well we play. And then if you're always trying to dig at us, you're always going, well, okay, you played well. But did you win? And we glaze over it. No. But the performance was brilliant. We had United down for at least 80 minutes, and then someone decided they'd take the lead and beat us. But I love going to games as often as I can, and this season I'm going to try and get myself into some of the because I've got a bit of a like membership loyalty thing going now for a little while, so I will now have a bit of priority on some of the away games. So I'm going to try and get myself into London-based away games more and more if I can. Yeah,
nice, and get a bit of travelling around as well, and it's always fun when you see your team away as well. I find it really interesting what you touched on there briefly, and it kind of links a bit, I guess, into your overall performance last year, because I think there is a fair bit of credence to what you say. For me anyway, it feels, watching Southampton, that Hasenhüttl has a way that he wants to play. He wants to play a very high line, he wants to play a high press, and he doesn't compromise or change that, even when it's very clearly not working in that situation, or you're now down a men and, Leicester or Manchester United have just scored the 9th. There's your next one for if you're playing a 9-0 bingo. So do you... I guess the positives are that you do get the good performance, but does it concern you at all sustainability-wise, or based off the whole of last season, I guess, when you finished, 15th?
Yeah.
And about there deservedly.
It was deserved, and it's one of those things. We look at the season as a whole, and you look and you go, well, you can't complain about the season as a whole, about where we finished and how we did. But you just look at little pockets where we had, we had December. We had a really decent run in December. At the end of December, we came through. We got, we were 2-1 down to West Ham after 60-odd minutes, and we came through, had a blinding second half. And that led into the games, where we draw against Man City, outplaying Man City.
I remember that actually,
United, again, on that Tottenham, outplaying United, outplaying Tottenham, same as West Ham. We came from 2-1 down to beat Tottenham. And you get that period until the start of March, where you're starting to think, this team is playing beautifully. We have an absolute chance to kick on here. And then we end up, I can't remember who it was, we end up with a team that really, off the back of those games, you're looking, look, we could beat anyone. Any team in the Premier League can beat anyone. And then we go on a run of losing, I think, 4 on the trot against teams battling relegation, and then we slide. And then after that, I think it's well documented.
It's just...
So I think, deservedly, and I am concerned by that weird sort of soft centre and really soft defence. If you watch other teams, there are certain teams you watch and they are really good in defence. Mid-table teams, really good in defence. And a Southampton attack against them, you see us go forward and you think, oh, we're gonna have a chance.
Yep.
And, we'll see how that goes. If that team then comes at us, instant dread. You're thinking, that's a goal. And it's very interesting because obviously we often churn out, this is the whole ethos of Southampton, is to buy players with potential and sell them on. And we churn out...
To Liverpool.
To Liverpool, Liverhampton Football Club, as we like to call them. The latest one, we've got Bednarek. Teams are looking at them going, yeah, we want Bednarek. We had... Vestergaard, the last season or season ball to Leicester, and these are players that, you know, they have great performances, and yet in our team, it's still conceding a lot of goals, 60 plus goals. Tino Livramento had an incredibly breakout season, but he's still conceding 60 goals. So there's something that does concern us. And looking at this season, it's going to go one or two ways. We'll see how it does go.
Yeah, it's. I mean, in terms of the goals, it was only Watford, Leeds, and Norwich that conceded more than you last year. And I mean, there's a couple more teams, Wolves and Leicester, if you sort the table by expected goals allowed, that conceded more than you as well. So that's definitely an area of concern. I guess coming now into touching a bit of transition, that, you know, it seems this year that for the first time in a while, you're actually spending money before making any moves. I mean, talk to us about whether you think, you know, the moves that you've made so far are good, and but how you think it progresses this team.
I am very, very excited by them. It's still the same mould that you get, where we've gone with it's 6 signings at the moment. We've gone with keepers. Were one of those things where the keepers actually are half decent. I actually preferred Forster to McCarthy, but we kept McCarthy. But I mean, both of them were on 70k a week, so to speak. So it's a big outlay. So we had to ditch at least one of them, and we've brought in Bazunu. He looks exceptional as a 20-year-old goalkeeper. You know, I'm excited to see him in action. I'm hoping he gets a really good chance to push for the number 1 jersey this season. So he's a good start. Bella Kotchap as a football manager player, as many of us are. I've signed Bella Kotchap in the past as one of those that we were dubbed a little wonder kid, and I am excited to see if his real life showing can do for us what he has done for me in game. The others, like looking at Lavia so far, he's had a great pre-season. He looks dominant.
Came straight in as well, didn't he? He started instantly playing pretty much straight away.
We've already, you know, as all fans do with their clubs, you're analysing all of the highlight reels and everything, trying to dig for any kind of gold that you can possibly see about someone. But looking at what he's done so far, he's stepped really well into it, and I'm looking forward to see him in it. Joe Aribo, I was very surprised to see him come to us. I'm really excited. So far, I actually don't think tactically Hassan Hüttl is playing to his strengths based on what I did see a little bit of Rangers last season in Europa League and him play for Rangers.
Yeah.
So I really want to see us sort of work to his strengths, because he's a good player.
That one hurts. That one hurts me a lot.
Yeah, because you were after him.
Yeah, well, Bella Kotchap, actually, interestingly, we were linked with him a year ago. And kind of didn't go for him in the end. I think it was just because of the price at the time. And even now, you know, he's a 20-year-old centre-back, so he's got so long to go. He's not necessarily a finished Premier League drop-in and play centre-back.
No.
But I had a bit of a wish list for Palace this year, which was... what was it? It was a decent 6 to sit in front of our defenders, to actually be able to run play, and we've got that now, I think, in Doucouré.
Yes.
I wanted a right back, and then 2 centre backs, one that was kind of pretty much pushing for first team, and then one that would be like for the future. But I didn't have any specific players in mind. But then my 5th pick was specifically I wanted Joe Aribo, and I mean, no one played more games than him last year. I think in world football, or at the very least Europe. He played 70 games. So he's got an absolute engine on him.
He can
play. Yeah. He can play centre midfield in a double pivot. He can play at the 8. He can play out wide. He played up front in... It would have been the Europa League final, against Frankfurt.
He did,
scored as well. A bit of a scruffy goal, but he's shown a versatility, and I think it's a great signing for Southampton, coupled with the fact that all of your players are of a similar age profile. They're all young, all very highly rated, and I mean, a lot of people might not know this, but your director of football has come from Man City?
It's youth, so he's the director of youth development, I think it is.
Right.
Yeah. And that is, it just ties in with everything we're doing, where I think the youth coming out of Southampton Academy itself, high expectations, currently not really delivering on output. So we've gone a different way, and we're signing the best youth from around. Last season we raided Chelsea. This season we're raiding Man City by the looks of things. And then obviously he's getting involved to aid us with that. I think further afield they're looking at around the world now to see what we can get in to develop that, to really start to almost compete with your Ajaxes, Lisbons, and the two Red Bull clubs in terms of developing young players.
I think you're right. I mean, Southampton have always had that history. They've always had the pipeline of decent players, going way back, Matt Letizia, Alan Shearer, Theo Walcott, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, all the players that they brought in that we joke about that ended up at Liverpool, but that's for a very good reason why. And I think in that kind of way, I can understand it, because I see a lot of analogues with Palace now, right? That probably financially wise, potentially we're sitting at about the same area, but we kind of know that we're not going to get to the next level by spending masses and masses of money. So, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I mean, maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's kind of what it feels like with Southampton.
Very much the way. Very much. And like you've touched on it with Palace as well. You look at the signings they've made the last couple of seasons, along with bringing Vieira in, and you can get that sense that clubs within that sort of mid-table profile are looking to youth now. They're looking at that age-old adage. Kids don't win you anything. Well, maybe not, but they might get you higher up the table, might get you better financially placed to make a push into European places. And that's where, as a Saints fan, we had sort of 3 seasons where we were really pushing. We had Pochettino and then Koeman, where we really pushed into those places, and we were sort of looking up and looking forward. Even Claude Puel, for all his problems and his sort of negatively perceived football, he still helped us finish. I think it was 8th. It's just since then where it's maybe gone a bit backwards, but we're always looking up, and I always think, we've got the right idea. It just hasn't worked yet. And those kids are they're going to do it for us. They're exciting. That's what I like to see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, do you see any other ins or real areas of concern within your team? Is it still that defence, like you said?
It's tricky. It's one of those. Another season, another chance for the defence to really gel. There is some beautiful talent in there, and it's just a case of for me, I actually want to see the board looking at getting a proper defence coach in. I think that's the area of concern. I think Hasenhüttl himself, his tactics with that press, with that high press, that when it works incredibly, and when it doesn't, like you've said, no plan B, 9-0, job done. But when it does work, you can fight with the best of them. But I do think that someone needs to train those kids, mainly as they are, to sort of to maybe better their positioning defensively for those counterattacks when they happen against us, or when they break through the lines. No, I think for me, the area of concern at the moment, especially with pre-season, is attack. We've only scored 1 goal in 3 games so far.
Right.
And even towards the end of last season, there was a bit of fanfare about Brozier. He was a brilliant breakthrough. I'm really sad that we didn't get to sort him out. At the same time, though, I think, what was it? It was only 8 goals he scored. So
it wasn't a hatful. I mean, he had an injury issue for a while, I seem to remember.
He did. He had a niggle that kept him out for a little bit. But I mean, we've bought in Sekou Mara, and he's supposed to be. The story coming out of the club is that he scored 6 for Bordeaux last season, a very poor Bordeaux, and they're really hoping that with a better team around him, you can get some goals in.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at what we do at the moment, and I'm just thinking the end product's not there. So that's my main concern. And that's where I'm hoping Aribo can step into it and start delivering a bit of that creativity that perhaps we're missing in the final third.
Yeah. I mean, just to kind of round off the transfer chat, because you mentioned Fraser Forster is going. I'd just like to give a Very relieved shout out to Shane Long leaving, meaning I am never petrified that he's going to fucking score against us again. Every time Shane Long comes on as a substitute against Palace, I put £5 on to him to score, and I am very much up on the deal over the years.
You make your money and just add at the same time. It's a real shame for Shane, isn't it? He's been one of those. He's been a brilliant servant. He has been the true definition of a super sub, second class super sub, mind you. There are better ones at Liverpool, unfortunately. But he, and it's unfair on him almost that he's had such a long time span at the club where he has had to just, play second fiddle. Even at his ripe age, the last couple of seasons, he's still had remarkable pace. Considering, Vardy-esque, just not quite as good. But I'm glad he's got his transfer. It's
me
is it
too.
out to Reading? Is that
it is indeed
right?
To Reading? Yeah. So
I'm glad he gets a chance, and I think he started it in Reading. I think I read that he started his whole thing out in Reading. So
what a beautiful, lovely journey
it is, isn't it? I'm really happy for him. It's obviously he's left us a bit short now again, but no, it's right for him.
I mean, there's still time. There's still time for moves. You never know what's going to happen with Breuer. Although, West Ham for a while, but then maybe Newcastle. But we shall see. So I guess looking at the type of signings you've made, and then going forward into next season, what do you think the club's ambition really is, and kind of your expectation then as a fan is next year? Because it feels like, I mean, Hassan Hüttl's there. He's been backed through quite a lot and a lot of ups and downs, it's fair to say, and still has 2 years on his contract. And this build doesn't necessarily feel like results for this season. So is it just kind of a case of get over the line, finish above 17th, and then kick on?
Yeah, I think it is. I think secretly they've got desires to, obviously they do want to push up. They have back, so it's upwards of between 50 and 60 million at the moment we're looking at, which for us is a decent outlay. We don't normally do that without having sold players.
Yes, that's the key thing, isn't it? It's normally there's been a balance there in your books. So
it looks like, and like you say, perfectly building for the future. There were a couple of, I've already said, Tino Livramento, probably one of the best young stars in the league right now. He's obviously on a long-term injury. We don't expect him back until the end of this year, 2022.
Is it that bad? Was that his ACL or something?
Yeah, it's really disappointing. So that was back in, I think it may be February that he got that. And so he's not expected back until hopefully December. But it's one of those where we've actually been really good with anyone that's been injured over the past. We do not rush people back. Yeah. We do give them the time, and that's a part of, obviously, it's a part of how we have recruited last season and this season. There's a lot of cover in a lot of places and positions now, which is good. But it's one of those. If we get a run together, if it clicks like it has done in previous seasons, we've had periods of time where it's clicked. Then we're more than safe, and we'll end up the same place. We'll end up 15th, maybe up to 12th. If it really gels, we could have a little run towards European places, and I expect us to fall away. I hope we're not looking at a relegation scrap, but it's a reality. Yeah, it's a reality. We're a young squad. We have managed it. We've got a good heart. We've managed to keep JWP. That's a signing in itself, really. And then Romeu is a bit of an unsung hero. He's a good midfield battler, and then obviously to get Lavia as an understudy to him, who could genuinely rotate on a game by game basis comfortably by the looks of things. That's exciting, but we just have to see. I'm ever optimistic as a Saints fan, but like you say, I think I'm looking at next season as the one that I get fully excited. This season, I'm just going to go along for the ride. Yeah, and
I mean, that's what I said anyway. So yes, of course, I'm glad that you agree with me. Excellent. I think it's fair that I've said this before, I think there's enough clubs this season that you can have a legitimate conversation that they get sucked in, but less of it about necessarily them being awful, but just the quality improving. Everton's situation, Leicester dropping down quite a bit. Can Brentford do another second season? Leeds have had a massive overhaul. Obviously, the 3 promoted sides. So yeah, I guess it's just about keeping your head above water. I mean, I feel like with the types of signings you've made, the number of signings you've made, coupled with the fact that you've already said like you play decent football, I think emotion-wise, you can have a similar season to like I had with Palace last year. That like you can forgive a lot of the stuff when the performances are happening, and you're gonna naturally pick up enough results along the way. I think
you're spot on. It is. It's we do share, with Palace and Southampton at the moment. I've already touched on. I've got a couple of Palace friends with a healthy sort of rivalry, really. Mm-hmm. But like you've touched on, it's about sort of you've got these younger sides, these developing sides where they are exciting. The style of play is fun to watch. It's not boring and sort of 10 behind
attritional. We've got rid of Burnley. Got rid of Burnley.
And then you do forgive, and every now and again you have that game where just they're not at the races and you're watching it going, why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. But more often than not we turn up, especially against the bigger sides, and that's exciting. It doesn't matter, again, for me, I keep coming back to it. United is the big bogey team. We over the years have played incredibly well against United. Mm-hmm. Incredibly well. I think it was 2017 League Cup final. Whether it's Carabao back then, but stick to my Football Manager League Cup years.
What sponsor was it?
Exactly,
Jesus,
right.
Spin a wheel.
What do you want to go with? But we outplayed them off the park, and we were 2-1 up, and we were like, we were gonna win a trophy. This is great. First trophy since the St Johnstone's Paint Trophy. What fun. And then it was Ibrahimovic came up in like the 90th and 95th minute, and you just left going, well, you didn't deserve that, but all right, I guess you can have it then. If you really want it that much, fine. Yeah. And we do that a lot against some of the some of the bigger teams, not Liverpool. Liverpool so far have just had us dead to rights for, or Liverhampton FC.
Yeah,
begrudge them nothing because half their squad's made up of our players anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're not really going to be looking at those kind of teams for any kind of sustained results, unless you're Palace, and then you just win against all the Manchester teams, and it makes no fucking sense.
You do, you do well.
Yeah. We're going to round this off a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you play a bit of Fantasy Premier League.
I do,
I believe. How are you? Do you normally put Southampton players in? Do you overvalue them, or do you avoid?
I often aim to get my 3 Southampton players in.
Naturally,
it's usually because obviously it's like one of those clubs where you've got some of the cheaper options, and you can get one of them kind of bench fillers, but they're actually a good bench filler.
Yeah. Livramento last year was, what was he, 4 million? That was it. He was in everyone's bloody team.
That's exactly, a stunning buy.
Breuer up front was 5.5, something like that.
Yeah. And then I can't leave out James Ward-Prowse. You just can't leave him out. Even if he's not scoring points, it's just I've just got to do it on principle. The guys are a bit of a club legend for us now, but I mean, this season, I'm going to be honest, I still haven't made my team yet, because I'm just looking around, and I want to really honestly leave it to last minute, because every season you do it. Every season I make a whole new team every week, basically, until the start of the season. Yeah. And I'm sure everyone's listening has had a look at, the kind of players you can get. So many players, so many midfielders to begin with. Let's just talk about that. So many midfielders.
Here we go.
Valued at 6.5 million. Okay, excellent midfielders. 6.5 million, lovely. And what's his name? I can't remember his name now. Tottenham's new Croatian fella,
Perisic.
Yeah, he's a left back apparently on Fantasy.
Yeah, he's defender. He's going to play as wing back probably under Conte.
As a wing back, but he's going to get you plenty of points. But I mean, there's so much options, and I will be obviously looking at my 3 customary Southampton choices on the cheaper scale if I can get them and if it makes sense. I've no idea who I'm going to put in yet. I think Aribo's got to get a shout.
Yeah.
Got to do it.
5.5.
Exactly. You can't say no until he scores no points in the first 2 seasons. I take him out and then he goes hat-trick hero and I go, why? Just why? that's the game we play.
But that's why we all play it. Because really, we all hate ourselves.
We do. On varying degrees, usually by about midway point, quite a lot. But that's the fun of it, isn't it, really? You keep yourself in contention until someone just runs away and you go, well, I hate you. Just first off. But yeah, it's one of those where you're eyeing up Salah and you're going, well, he's just so expensive. I can't justify it. And then you just end up going, yeah, all right, I will justify it.
When he starts just scoring every week and you're like, no, I still made the right choice.
And you don't buy him until he's worth 15 million and you're going, well, I could have had him at 13, but just whatever.
Yeah, just swallow your pride.
Yeah.
I think the biggest one of those was the Leicester season, I remember. And Jesus Christ, I got Vardy in. He went, 13 games in a row scoring?
Yeah.
I got him in on game 11.
Oh, and it's so sad.
What a prick.
I think I might better you.
Not Vardy. Vardy a bit. But...
Vardy is, yes. I think I might better you. I think I genuinely was on game 14. So I put him in game 14 and he got me nothing. And I can't remember who I took out, but I know that that game, I think they got a goal and assist or something. They got points.
Yeah, definitely. No need to check. It definitely
happened. I can't check now. I'm just going with it. That happened. I was very annoyed. But that's, like you say, that's why we hate ourselves. We love to do it.
Absolutely. What a glorious sentiment to end on as well. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about Southampton. Normally I hate them. I mean, I specifically hate Ward-Prowse, but I'm getting you're turning me around a little bit here. You're turning me around, it must be said.
He might be gentle to you this season, so you can like him then.
Oh, he'll score a free kick, the little rat-faced prick.
Well, I hope he does.
Yeah.
Just against you, just for you.
Anyway, thank you once again for listening. Thanks for joining us on this pre-season tour we're doing of the country. We've still got a couple more to go. Join us on Twitter at Miles Offside Pod. You can join our Fantasy Premier League there. You can get involved in the Mophead League. The auto join link is there. And also, if you want to make some predictions for where you think all 20 teams are going to finish, there's a little Google Sheet form you fill out, and that'll enter you into that free to play competition. Or if you're feeling a bit flush, you've had yourself a summer bonus. Patreon.com/Miles Offside Pod. There's all sorts of bonuses. You can get on the Slack and enjoy a little lovely corner of the internet, as it were. But thank you very much for listening, and thank you again, Matthew. This is bloody lovely.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.